Stay a while and listen. Welcome everybody to a brand new podcast. Today we're going to talk about Diablo. If you don't know what this show is about, well, it's a podcast. Like I said already, it's a show where we're going to talk about our personal experiences with games. Today's game being that of Diablo. So we may not necessarily get everything right. We may forget a date or two, or a function was in a game, it was in a sequel instead of that game. Things happen. So if you just want to have a journey through our experiences with these games and hear some nice stories, stick around. If not, well, the comment section is right there, so you can start complaining right now. I am joined again by Stefan from the channel Complete Nonsense. Hi, Stefan.
Hey Unicom, good morning, afternoon, evening to our listeners. That Deckard Cain of yours is kind of old. I'd go with something like "Stay a while and listen." So
yeah, but you don't have the Sean Connery in it. Stay a while and listen.
I don't. Miss Moneypenny. I don't.
Perfect.
I don't really see Deckard Cain as Scottish.
Well, he sounds a bit like Sean Connery.
I don't know. Although if he were voiced by Sean Connery, that would have been quite interesting.
Oh, they could do him in the movie.
He could say, "Indy, what's the name of the dog?"
Yeah, we should do the entire podcast talking like this.
Yes. For international pirate, they are.
Oh, that would murder my throat, though.
Yeah, pretty much. I think mine as well.
Especially now, because you're recovering from a cold, and I've got a thing with a cough.
Yes. One of the reasons we took a break last week was due to illness. Dual illness. We were dual wielding illnesses.
It was highly effective at killing the podcast for a week.
Yep.
So this week we are talking about Diablo 1. Not the entire series, just the first one, because, well, there's a lot to talk about the first one. Especially now because if you don't know, somebody spent like over 1,000 hours trying to recreate the source code of the first game.
Have you ever heard, if you've ever heard of a labor of love, that this is pretty much the definition of it. This crazy motherfucker, or team, but I think it was just a guy, spent, like you said, I read somewhere around 1,200 hours reverse engineering the source code by using like bits and pieces that were missed. He got a bunch of it from a PlayStation port. He got some bunch from a Japanese demo, that sort of stuff. That's an insane amount of work.
Yeah, and it's made to be accurate, like with all the bugs in it.
Yeah, that's granted. It's not the actual source code. We need to be clear about that. It's not the actual source code written by Blizzard at the time. Well,
Condor.
But yeah, no, because it doesn't have comments. It doesn't have absolutely every piece of information isn't explained. But a decent enough coder looking through it will be able to understand what goes on and build on top of it. So. Yeah. That was the inspiration behind us doing this Diablo-themed episode.
Hopefully, since this source code is out and about, people that are making mods can now more easily create improved version of Diablo 1, like high resolution support, all the trimmings that would be required for it to run better on the modern systems. We were hoping that Blizzard would do that itself. But instead we got the...
I think we've been hoping that Blizzard would do that for many, many years. And I think many of us hoped that 2016 would be the year they announced some shit. But no, they didn't.
That would have been perfect. It was the 20th... Not 20th...
it was the 20th.
Yeah, 20th anniversary of Diablo.
Yeah, that's when a lot of us thought if something's going to happen, that's when they're going to announce it. But
what we got instead was a sort of level for Diablo 3 where they turned down the graphics and made the movement in 8 directions and added some Diablo 1 type creatures in it, and that's it. And you need the expansion to play it.
Also the music, though. I think they changed the music a bit as well.
But it's still Diablo 3.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
It's just the worst version of Diablo 3.
But there have been rumors, and we have seen we have seen some hirings going on, which might signal Diablo 2 remake, remaster.
That's
something
been
like
going around since 2015, I think. I was still working at Games Arena when I first saw that, and I was hoping so much that it would be a Diablo and Warcraft 2. But they said that Warcraft 2 is no, because it's kind of, it's not a very good game compared to what we have now in terms of RTS, so they're not remaking that. But
It really
Diablo
isn't.
1, they could have.
I mean, it's cool. It was great, but it's basically the same unit, but with different skins.
Yeah, but still, Warcraft still had some charm. Warcraft 1, however, no, like, I'm okay with them not remaking it. Like that was just...
But we'll see. Maybe they announce something at this year's BlizzCon. Maybe this is when they announce.
Hopefully, it'll be Diablo 2. If they skip one, maybe skip this one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that it will be Diablo 1. We can actually tell if Blizzard goes after the source code. If they go after this to take it down, then they might be working on something. If they don't give a shit, then they're not working on Diablo 1.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, they are very, very litigious, so they may still go after it.
On the other hand, they did go after the WoW vanilla servers, and afterwards they announced they're going to implement.
They've been going after them for decades because they're private servers.
I know, but this was. I mean, sure, but I still think it might be, if they go after it, might be a sign of something. Also, you can't really buy Diablo 1 now.
Well, I think you still can't. Let me check. I think you still could on Battle.net.
I don't really think so. You can buy Diablo 2 and play it. That one's still supported, but I don't think you can actually find and play, or buy and play. You can find it, but you can't buy it. Diablo 1.
Let me see. Okay, Blizzard Store. Let's go to Diablos. Where's the category for old crap? Oh my god, why is Call of Duty on the Blizzard Store? That's
because now you can buy, you can play other stuff through Battle.net also.
Yeah, you're correct. The oldest game they have for sale is Diablo 1, Diablo 2. Oh, StarCraft. Yeah. StarCraft is the oldest one. They don't have anything before it.
Yeah, so you cannot buy and play Diablo 1, which is a shame, because goddamn, it's still
it's still awesome.
It would still be a highly playable game. I mean, there's a lot of value, intrinsic value into the game, and the mechanics are still. I mean, it's the game that started the action RPG genre, pretty much, or subgenre, if you want to call it that way. And as such, but as opposed to other pioneers or games that started genres, you can totally still play Diablo 1 and really enjoy it, because it's that fucking cool.
The only thing that's bad about it is that you can't run in the base game, like, anywhere.
Yeah, but the game wasn't. I mean, if the maps weren't generated in such a way that running was necessarily a necessity, as it were. Yeah, it would take maybe a bit longer to walk around the places, but I don't remember us spending a lot of time walking down hallways, which would be better. It would be a good addition, or like a quality of life change, but it's not. It's not something that I would write as against the game. Just the fact that you can't run.
Hellfire added the ability to jog in town, so you move. Well, you don't run; they just sped up the walking animation. Because
it's a power walk.
It was about as hacked together as any mod would be. So I don't think I think Cyberlore made it. The Hellfire expansion. Let me check.
What I do know is that the guy who basically masterminded the entire Diablo thing, and the guy who was the lead creator of both 1 and 2 was really not happy with Hellfire. That's what I know.
Oh, it is made by Synergistic Software, which was also a studio that I believe made a lot of expansions for everybody else. No, Hellfire was actually the last game they made. Wow. It killed the studio.
Good.
Actually, there's a lot of stuff in Hellfire that is pretty much cut content from Diablo 1.
There might, I'm sure there is, but I'm just going by what by that post-mortem. Which, by the way, there is for our listeners who do not know, one of the best sources, the most complete and historically relevant sources about the development of Diablo. There is a GDC hour-and-a-half long post-mortem
with David Brevik. He's the man that named Diablo, and made a lot of work on it.
And he started the idea and everything else. So that's some of the best. That's where we find out a lot of things, like the fact that it wasn't real time to begin with, and it was super inspired by XCOM and Doom and things like that. So if you're inspired by this episode, and want to know more about Diablo from the person who actually worked on it and made it, check out that post-mortem, because it's
beautiful.
It is. If you're into this sort of, it's a bit slow when he explains the problem with rendering the floors and the walls, but it picks up after that. It's fine.
You'll find a lot of very, very beautiful things. Like the game was initially meant to be like even more claymation than it is, because you can see that some creatures seem a bit puttyish, plasticish. It was meant to be claymation completely at one point.
Well, I think he makes the differentiation between claymation and stop motion. He says it would have been stop motion, and maybe just because of the time, the stop motion was associated with claymation. But that was an idea for like 5 minutes worth of development time, because they realized it would be impossible to create and photograph and then render in all of these really, really what at that time would be super huge files.
Oh yeah, I remember I was shocked when I first saw the game, the demo of it. Did you play the first thing you played was the demo, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, we all had the demo. Like that demo was everywhere. We could not find the full version of Diablo 1 anywhere.
Yeah, I remember trying, and I mean literally just trying to find the entire game, and it was literally years. It took years from playing the demo till I would actually get to play the actual full game. To be honest, I really played Diablo 1 after I played Diablo 2. It was that difficult for me to get a hold of the game. But that demo was super awesome, because it had, if I remember correctly, I think it had like 4 levels.
You could get to the Butcher, and I believe 1 level below it. Yeah,
so Butcher was level 3, and then you could go another one beyond them. And thanks to the sort of procedurally generated levels, you could just replay the shit out of the demo. And am I mistaken, or did you have multiplayer function on the demo?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it did.
I'm not positive, but I remember maybe having a multiplayer setting. I could never play it back then, obviously. But I'm not sure. I think that's I'm not saying you could.
I remember there were rumors that you could hack the demo so you'll have access to other classes. And I believe I actually had one version that had a save file with the mage on it, but it would crash if you tried to leave the level he was in and everything was already dead.
Ah, well. See, that's more or less the type of thing that this crazy dude used to reverse engineer the code, like little extra pieces of stuff that were left around various builds. I can't remember. I'm forgetting which game had its entire dev kit on a Polish CD.
Oh, that was Arcanum.
Arcanum, okay, yeah.
No, Arcanum or Temple of Elemental Evil.
Temple. Yeah, no, you're right. Temple. Temple. Just like they found it. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. They found the entire dev kit on a random release of the Polish. So that shit tended to happen a lot more back when you had to have physical release of your game. Nowadays, I don't think that much.
Now we get situations in which the developers accidentally publish the beta code of the game as the full version and then somehow delete the full version of the game, and then they apologize for it, and then turns out there is never a full version of the game. So that was sort of the Stars 2, for those wondering. It was a 4X a couple of years ago that had a really awkward release.
Yeah, so in the olden times, you would get a bunch of extra shit on the CD, and now you don't even get the actually full release of the game anymore. So, but so now let's get back to the Diablo. So
I don't think we've established exactly what Diablo is for those who have never played it.
I think I mentioned it's the incipient of the action RPG genre.
Yes, but
so
it has a couple of characteristics. It's a top-down, isometric, gothic, dark, very broody, very gloomy action RPG where you're visiting a town called Tristram that's supposed to be your hometown, and you realize that it's either abandoned or something very bad happened to it, and the church at the end of the town is sort of haunted by demons, and turns out that church is basically built over a pit that goes straight to hell. So
Spoilers much? Spoilers?
Well, I mean, it's called Diablo. It's not called Happy Fun Times in Tristram with no devils around.
I think that would have been too on the nose with no devils around. Like, but yeah, that's the general setting and gist of the game. Although I don't know if we should. I don't know if it's necessary to describe Diablo nowadays, to be honest. Although maybe it is for like historical purposes.
Yeah, it also had some characteristics that were. It had a bit of roguelike in it, because random generation of levels. You would have random items, which random items in that way was not really a thing back then, was it?
No, it really wasn't. That's
Rogue had it because it was Rogue.
Yeah, but not necessarily on the scope or scale that you could find them in, that you could see them in Diablo 1, and that was one of the features that got copied and that perpetuate up until today, actually.
One of the things I loved about the game's loot is exactly how it generated the loot. All modern games have awful loot, and I mean this is just plain awful. You'll find items in current games that have +1 to damage, +1 to a stat that goes into the hundreds or thousands, and you're expected to be excited to find that. In Diablo 1, you'd find a weapon that gave you +3 damage out of a maximum of what was I think the 20 maybe. Some of the bonuses went to 20.
It was the numbers were considerably smaller back then.
And they also gave you things like the Dyslexia. Suddenly you can't say it for shit anymore, but you deal a lot of damage if you do. It had disadvantages. A lot of them.
Yeah, wasn't there one spell or something that reversed the controls on the mouse?
I think it was Jester. Jester could do a lot of crazy stuff.
I'm not necessarily sure. I played this a very long time ago. But yeah, the fond memories. And funny enough, I was told about Diablo way long before I actually got to play it from I had a visiting friend that used to visit my town during the summer holidays, and he told me about this game. And I was like, yeah, sure, it's fine, let's play on the NES. But years had to pass for me to realize that what he was telling me about was actually Diablo. Because he mentioned at some point, that you find weapons and armor and shit like that. And he said, well, at a certain point, you get this sun over your head, and then you have more HP. That's how he explained. Yeah, that's how he explained it. And when I saw that, it finally clicked in my head what he was talking about. So technically, that was my introduction to Diablo, but I wasn't aware that's it. And after that, I guess much like the rest of at least Eastern Europe, I got my first introduction by playing the demo.
We didn't have really much choice. I think the game ended up in stores again in a reprint version, in the bestseller version, around 2004. That's when I actually got the chance to play the full version of the game. Up until then, I only had the demo version, and I also had something else, the walkthroughs on DHL. Oh, the DLH, the Digital Helper. There were a lot of walkthroughs and facts. Yeah, they had. Like, there was one that was like, it explained the game like in incredible detail. It went from the lore to the mechanics of it to pretty much every line of dialogue in the game. The entire game was there, and I just read that thing until I memorized even the poems in the game from that walkthrough. I really wanted to play it because I had seen Diablo 2. I had seen it in internet cafes. I had seen it in that magazine that we both had, with the gigantic, detailed fact with all the weapons, all the gear,
sets. I think that was PC Games. Yeah. So you basically played it. Did you play it before or after Diablo 2?
I played it. I played the alpha before Diablo 2. And I played the full version after a bit of Diablo 2. I didn't play like a lot of Diablo. I only played a bit of it. When I got to play Diablo 2 for the first time, I was using a friend's character. They were doing ball runs. I had no idea what a ball run was. I was basically at the point where Ball summons his minions, and I was just trying to attack Ball. And you can't attack Ball at that point because he's invulnerable. I didn't know that.
So this was already in Lord of Destruction time.
Yeah, it was around 2002.
Okay. So, no, I wasn't that far late to it. I played the original Diablo 2 first, and then got to play Diablo 1 because I played Diablo 2 on friends' computers because they had slower computers. I couldn't run Diablo 2 back then, but I managed to finally, because a bit of internet was trickling down, and I managed to get Diablo 1 so I could run that one, and that's why I played Diablo 1 after technically Diablo 2.
Around what time would you say you played the Diablo 1? Kind of what year?
Ooh, that's that was I think 2001 maybe. So, maybe 2002, but I'm not sure about that. But it might have been around 2001. Yeah.
What was your impression of it at a technical level? Because I asked this because even though I played it around 2004, I was impressed as hell by it because it looked like when you pressed the Z key and it zoomed in, it just looked amazing.
That was a really cool function. After all, one of the main things that I really liked about Diablo 1 was the auto map function.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that it overlaid and it worked in real time. That's one of the main like gameplay features that I really enjoyed a lot because I'm that type of player who really likes to explore every nook and cranny of a map.
And it made things so much easier.
And exactly. It made it really clear where I haven't been. Because I usually, in Diablo and in other games, I usually go around the corners of the edges of a map so that I know, that I know the limit of where I have to go and where I have to explore. And also, especially in Diablo 2, that's more relevant because I get to see where the entrances and the exits from the map are, so I can know where to go to advance. But that's something I like to do with maps. And I'm just that type of player who likes to explore a map 100% if possible, maybe even find the secrets and stuff depending on the game. So the auto map feature was the thing that I really gravitated towards in the sense of me being extremely impressed by the game. And yeah, it still looked, now you have to keep in mind, and this was your situation as well, we were both playing Diablo 1 with previous knowledge and having played Diablo 2 a bit. or not really. I mean, I've definitely seen Diablo 2. But I remember playing Diablo 1 and understanding, obviously, by that time I had accrued enough information, enough knowledge about the about gaming in general to understand that this is an older game. It's not gonna maybe run as smooth or be as complex as Diablo 2 was. But the other thing that I really enjoyed was the sound of the thuds.
Mm-hmm.
The sound of both in the menu and also when you would smack skeletons and shit.
They were very satisfying.
Yes, it was a very visceral sound. You could basically couldn't feel, obviously, but you had the impression of the
impact,
sensation, of the sensation of actually hitting something. So
that's something that one of the I wouldn't say spiritual successor, but a game that some of the developers of Diablo tried to do was the Eternal Darkness game. It was sort of like Diablo with 3 characters in Japan. And combat there felt so floaty. You didn't feel like you were hitting anything.
Yeah,
here, it was perfect.
I read about that game and read that it was done by by some of the Diablo people.
Yeah.
And I eventually got it, and it was just nothing like Diablo. The combat was way too quick, and shit was going on way too fast to actually enjoy it. And I was kind of sorry because I am a fan of Japanese-inspired and Japanese culture stuff. So, yeah.
One of the other things that really struck me about Diablo was the lighting of it. When you throw a projectile in the game, it will light up everything around it. Sure, it did it tile-based, because it was a tile-based game, tile-based graphics, but the fact that it did it just blew my mind, especially in the alpha version when probably the other best-looking game I had on my computer back then was Settlers 2, which had the little trees with 4 frames of animation blowing in the wind. That was the peak of graphics for me.
Yeah, the guy goes into quite a bit of detail in the post-mortem explaining how exactly they did the lighting and why it looks the way it looks. It has something to do with how they separated the color palette between, characters and assets and the background and stuff like that. It's quite interesting to listen to. Granted, it's not something you would have to do today, because nowadays gaming engines are seriously incredibly more evolved than what they had to do back then. He actually says a bunch of Diablo was actually written in assembly language. So yeah,
the best language. So thankfully it is.
That one just goes to say it just goes to show you how much game development has evolved. I don't want to say how easier it has become, because games also became more complex, but it goes a lot to explain about that. And the idea is that lighting is a huge part of that game's atmosphere. And Diablo is, I believe you called it perfect gloom.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It was the title of your video about it, and that's a pretty valid definition of what the game looks like and what the game imparts onto the player.
Just walking around Tristram, and that it's eternal gloom in that town. It's eternal twilight, eternal night, sort of.
Yeah.
You see that glow just emerging from the church with the
reddish glow. It's a reddish glow.
Yeah. And the projection from the windows onto the cemetery. That's a degree of atmospheric element that I rarely see in video games. Like the closest thing I ever seen to that was when I was in the hospital, and the door at the bathroom was never closed and had a red light through it, and it shone like the devil was about to come out. It wasn't a very pleasant experience because I was in the hospital, but still, it reminded me of Diablo.
And the lighting was very important, and you have to keep in mind they did what they did, having access to only 256 colors.
Yeah, still looked amazing.
It did. It looked extremely well for what they set out to do. It wouldn't have worked just as well if they would have had, adventures through forests and shit.
There was supposed to be adventures through forests, but they cut them out of the game.
I'm sure there were. But I'm just saying that same color palette, those color palette choices wouldn't have worked in a more, a brighter sort of setting.
Oh yeah, if it was daylight, it would have been broken completely.
Yes, exactly. But they never planned for that. Wasn't the initial plan. The initial plan was always this ever deepening catacomb dungeon. And it made sense for it to be dark and maybe brackish and maybe a bit yellow here and there, and obviously red because of the fires of hell and whatnot.
Lava, the blood.
Happens.
Yeah.
But the other thing that stuck with me and still is with me up until today, relating to atmosphere, is the monumental music.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That Diablo has. Those doesn't have a lot of music. It only has a couple of tracks, but they do their job incredibly well.
The music was composed by Matt Uelman, by the way. He also made the music for Diablo 2. And a bit of World of Warcraft, The Burning Crusade, actually.
Which, mind you, Diablo 2 has a lot. I mean, obviously they had to make the music somewhat similar, and it still has some of the same motifs that Diablo 1 has.
Yeah, it
also super great.
It turns a bit more epic in the as you get closer to the end game and in the expansion. It becomes a bit more epic.
Of course, because Diablo 2 is has a completely different scope than Diablo 1. I mean, in Diablo 1, basically, you're just going deeper underground, Yeah,
it was a more intimate, personal affair, whereas in Diablo 2,
it's also a much more claustrophobic affair if you think about it.
Yeah, it's slower and methodical. Again, because you can't run, it makes you feel like you're cautiously walking through the dungeon.
And also the dungeons they didn't have plazas or very wide open spaces. There was mostly tunnels and rooms and larger rooms or stuff like that.
Yeah, because it was lore-wise, the first level of the dungeon, the catacomb, was the mortuary crypt of the church where the Horadim were buried.
Makes sense.
And then you had the caves, and then you had the what was under it? There was something. No, wait. It was the. I forgot the order.
I think there was another sort of dungeon-like levels. I mean, organized, built. You know what I mean? With walls and stuff.
Yeah, I think the catacombs were the second one, because the first one was just the sort of church cellar, sort of, and then was the catacombs. Yeah, the second one was the catacombs. That's where the Host of the Blind quest was, with the invisible guys. I still remember the poem. I can see what you see not, the vision, milky then eyes rot, when in turn they will be gone, whispering their head in song, now we see what cannot be. So, okay, I forgot the rest of it.
It's fine, that's better than most of us.
I remember most of it for many, many years, because it just stuck with me. Again, it's probably because I didn't have a lot of games to play back then, especially when I got the alpha of it. So True. I remember pretty much anything in it.
Yeah, that sounds just about right. I mean, we talked about this a bit in the past episode or past episodes. The other one other important and cool thing about Diablo that really that they kind of scrapped from the sequel, is that you would be your character would be on this. Basically, you'd be going through the story. Let's call it. I mean, it was the story. You would be going through a bunch of quests and just going deeper into the. And one of the cool things I liked is that you could actually see palpable results of your quests, in the sense that you would find things and then you would take them to quest items. I mean, you would take them to town, and that's where Griswold could make you a weapon out of something. Or I remember you find a rock and does Griswold or someone else make you like a super powerful ring out of it?
It's Griswold's Edge. It's you have to find the Anvil of Fury to make Griswold's Edge.
That was a weapon.
Yeah.
But there's also a ring item. You find a rock that, I mean, it's a piece of I think it was a piece of a meteor, which was polluting the water. That's how you get into the caves. That's why you go into the caves to find the source of the pollution, of the corruption of the water.
No,
and
the one with the poison wall, that's just because there were some insects there, some demons.
Really? I always thought it was the stone. Anyway, but
when you get the first time to the cave level, you sort of get a preview of the cave level with the poison water quest.
At a certain point, you find like this magical, mystical rock, and you take it back to town, and someone turns it into a very cool ring. I remember.
Yeah, I think it was Griswold. And let me see if I can actually find it. Is there around here somewhere? Oh yeah, you get the Imperium Band, a unique ring from Griswold.
Okay, so probably that's what it was. So I really enjoyed that fact, and it's something that I actually that idea stayed with me so much so that I implemented it in my D&D games.
Out of curiosity, do you have a giant mushroom in your D&D games?
A giant mushroom? No, but I did have a bunch of. I did run a special game once where with a crack team of dwarf, like basically XCOM but with dwarves in D&D Worm. And they were in like a mountainous sort of area, but they had problems with giant mushrooms and fungi and some other crazy shit. But why the giant mushroom?
Well, there was a quest in Diablo 1 where you found the giant mushroom, and then you took it to Adria. Adria made you take it to somebody else and give you a potion for it, and you basically had a really long fetch quest where you have to give something to somebody else, and then at the end you get a reward. Trying to find exactly what reward you got. See, Anvil of Fury, the black mushroom.
Oh, that one. Okay.
You got a spectral elixir at the end from Pepin, which gave you +3 to your stats.
No, yeah, cool. Yeah, I remember now. But no, I didn't have black or giant mushrooms in my game, but I did have this thing about allowing the players and actually allowing them to make trophies at least, or make things out of the things they kill. I remember once they killed we killed because this wasn't my game actually. We killed it was a bone dragon lich, and then we just grabbed a bunch of its bones, and then we went to some craftsman and made customized weapons out of them.
Cool.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that aspect so much that I actually fitted it into my D&D games, and it's something that unfortunately doesn't really happen that much. And even if it does, it's surely no way as impactful or as flavorful as it was in Diablo 1.
Because in Diablo, you had very limited resources in terms of what you could expect to find from the people in town. Because I mean, there wasn't a king there giving you a quest to rid the world of evil or something like that. There was Griswold, who had some items. There was Pepin that would heal you. There was Wirt that would scam you most often.
Yeah.
There was someone you would call like.
He got his comeuppance though.
Oh, the poor
fucking Wirt.
The poor kid.
Oh, well.
All he wanted was to raise money so he could get Jillian out of town.
Yeah, that's what he says. I think he was on the dope.
Well, to be fair, I mean, he did get kidnapped as a kid by demons, so
that all of that post-traumatic stress disorder, man.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Farnham. He could end up like Farnham.
Anyway, where were we?
Well, how much did you spend a lot of time exploring Tristram on its own, like without the dungeon underneath it?
Oh yeah, of course. I obviously wanted to see how I wanted to see the limits and what else there was to be discovered. And also, if you don't explore Tristram, you do find Adria. I think it does. They do send you to her once, but I think there's definitely some cows you need to find, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff interesting looking stuff at least. I always remember and enjoyed seeing the tiny like knee-high walls everywhere.
Yeah, I kept trying to find a way to get over them.
I always found that kind of endearing and relatively realistic, actually, because this was like a small village, basically. It's barely a town. I mean, it has a fountain in the middle, sure.
Well, it used to be bigger, but somebody burned down.
Yeah, but it made sense because these people would neither need nor could they afford building high walls, except for the monastery, obviously, the
that was
church.
There since the beginning.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously I tried everything because I was looking for secrets and stuff like that, like things I could maybe click on and uncover and that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, despite the rumors, there was no cow level.
Yeah, I kept clicking on those cows still. Well, the cows came home. No effect. But in the expansion, you do get sort of a cow-related quest with the there's a farmer that shows up in that area in the expansion in Hellfire, and he makes you look for his suit. Now, in the normal version of the game, his suit is a moose suit.
What now?
You find a moose costume in the dungeon and give it to him, and he will dress as a moose. But if you edit if you create a command.txt file in Hellfire's folder and add I think it was cow quest, the moose suit transforms into a cow suit, and that character will then on just say moo when you talk to him after you complete the quest.
No, now the cow suit would make more sense than a moose suit, because Tristram isn't even. Does Hellfire take place also in Tristram?
Well, yeah, it's
okay. So
it adds like one of the main features it adds is a nest of insects that was supposed to be in Diablo 1, but they cut it out, which is right at the entrance of the point in the river where it splits, like when it goes towards Adria's small island. It adds a bit there, and also adds Horazom's lair from Diablo 2. But
okay.
It was meant to be in Diablo 1 as well, but they couldn't fit it, so they added in the expansion. So you get to fight Nakrul there.
My point being, Tristram isn't a Nordic. It's not at a high. It's not at a high latitude. There is no. I mean, moose requires like colder temperatures and very, very thick forests, and Tristram is not that. So that's why I don't understand the moose. Maybe a bull costume, but
it was a moose.
Maybe someone was Canadian.
Probably, I think the team that made the expansion may have been Canadian.
So maybe that's how that's why how moose would make a sense, would be like a fun Canadian reference. But otherwise,
apparently he also had a gray suit, which was a donkey, but he did not like that one, so you have to bring him the moose suit or the cow one if you enter the extra command.
The guy was into furries, I guess. He was a furry.
Probably.
And sure, whatever floats your boat, man.
Also, you kind of have to add the command.txt for him to show up anyway, I think.
Okay.
But he also get a reward called a bovine plate if you complete his quest, which is a armor with 150 armor class, plus 50 light radius, 30% resist all, minus 5 damage from all enemies, but it does give you things like -1 or -2 to all spell levels, because you're a cow, you're not that bright, and -50 to mana. Because you're
definitely,
a cow.
Yeah, definitely not for spellcasters.
Yeah, but hey, you're a cow.
Moo.
Again, it's something that I loved about Diablo 1. The items penalized you sometimes. You could find a super duper amazing item that had one drawback that just made you think, like really think, if this is something you should use or not. Not everything was a direct upgrade.
Yeah, that's another thing that that has been kind of lost to
Yeah.
modern game development. I don't understand why things don't come with penalties also. And I'm
To
just
make things
thinking
easier.
it does, and also maybe to satisfy that need of the player to feel that they're constantly progressing.
Yeah,
To
that
feed that.
constant treadmill, which is it sort of cheapens the game after quite quickly.
If it's poorly designed, yeah. And right now I'm actually thinking about the traits in Fallout 1 and 2, which gave you some very nice bonuses, but also came with some penalties, some serious penalties that you would need to keep in mind. That only enhanced the experience of playing those games. And from what I understand, they're gonna do a similar thing with Fallout 76. So that would be cool. Not in general. They say that the mutation mechanic would be something in the vein of those older traits. But that's something that I would like to see come back. Items that aren't necessarily cursed or anything, although those are a thing in D&D, but items that have benefits, but that also have drawbacks, not just very high requirements for you to wield them. Literally, they need to have some drawbacks.
The thing is, if you nose around to what kind of items you can make in Diablo 2, you'll find a lot of drawbacks. For example, there was one where your stamina would decrease at night. And that's something that's not ever used in game, but it's there. Somebody programmed it. So they were thinking about adding deficits to items, but they just didn't go through with it.
I can't even really remember the last time I played an RPG that had penalties to using some items. The
last one I played was Mid-Boss, which is a roguelike game where you play as basically a boss, a mid-boss in an RPG that goes around possessing other enemies because he just gets bored and sort of tired of being picked on by the bigger bosses.
I'm imagining this is something more recent.
Yeah, it was released last year, I think.
Well, that would kind of go as recent and indie also.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. Maybe I did find some items in something I played, but nothing that really stayed with me. I actually think now, thinking back to the last time that an RPG had almost an RPG had anything coming close to that sort of a mechanic was in Dawn of War 2 with the Chaos Rising expansion on it. Because the game changes quite a bit once you add in the Chaos Rising, because your Space Marines can fall to chaos, can be corrupted by chaos. And they can also then use corrupted items. And those items have benefits, but they also have drawbacks because they're chaos items. So I think that's kind of the last one I remember playing that had very clear drawbacks to using their items. And it's really something that I wish there would be more of. But I think one of the reasons that we don't see that much is because nowadays, due to the considerably larger scope of games, you can't balance for that. That's one of the reasons I think they don't do that anymore, is that you can't really balance for penalties that will be randomly generated much as they
don't
generate
really
bonuses.
balance games well for randomly generated loot in general. One of the best examples is The Witcher 3, where you get super duper amazingly legendary items that are worthless compared to the random magic sword you'll find at your current level.
I don't know, I haven't played that game, so I really don't don't know.
The random loot, the simple magic loot that you find, scales to your level. The legendary ones really don't. So you may spend a lot of time searching for a legendary sword, you may be given an ancestral sword by a king that turns out to be worthless.
Oh, I see. So
like it gives you an ancestral sword to kill an army of invading monsters from a different world, and it's sort of like nothing compared to like the random crap you find from a wolf or something.
Yeah, from a wolf. Yeah, was it that? Was this that Demon Souls wolf? Because he has a huge ass sword. I'm just saying. I don't know if it's Demon Souls or Dark Souls. I don't know. For me,
Dark Souls 1. It was Sif.
For me, they all blend together. Sorry about that. Because I've never played any of them.
Never tried the original versions of the PC ones. Just get the remastered and Dark Souls 3. Those are the only ones that are playable on PC, like properly, actually fun, and not require you to be a masochist.
I have that. I have the Acolyte of Pain one. I don't know which one that is. I think it's Demon Souls 2. Anyway.
That's Scholar of the First Sin.
Okay. Why did they say Acolyte of Pain there?
I don't know. Scholar of the First Sin is kind of crap in terms of controls on PC.
I think we can have like a very cool punk band. That's a good name for a punk band.
Acolyte of Pain.
Yep. Sounds good. Now I need to do something with the title. That's a good. Why Scholar of the First Order? I went to Acolyte of Pain. What the fuck is wrong with my brain?
I think you may have tried to play it and realized it was kind of painful.
I don't know. No, I actually didn't. But yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you didn't forgot. You erased the pain.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger came in and said, "You are now erased." References to movies most people haven't really seen. But back, let's just going back to Diablo 1. So music, atmosphere. We talk about the features we liked. That's cool. That was nice. Anything else you wanna? Any other feature you wanna? Durability. That was weird.
Oh, yeah.
That was a weird. I mean, it's a great thing to have in the game. But if I remember correctly, at least the warrior had a skill to repair stuff.
Yeah, but
he didn't repair it.
Every time he did, half the maximum durability would be slashed.
It lowered the maximum durability. That was its loophole, I guess.
The wizard had the ability to recharge his staves, but again, when you recharge them, they would lose half the charges.
Using scrolls was something that you could actually, that was kind of feasible even for warriors. I remember the first, the first time you meet the butcher, you die, basically. The first ever time.
When I played the alpha of it and got the butcher, I had spent I played a lot, just going around killing stuff and collecting money and redoing the stuff. And I managed to get a scroll of fireball and had enough intelligence to use it. The butcher died from one fireball. That was in the alpha. In the full version, he dies a lot harder.
Oh yeah, a lot harder, a lot harder. So I died many times trying to kill the butcher until I noticed, and I came upon an idea. And this is one example of really ancient, emergent gameplay.
Sitting in a doorway?
I was sitting in the doorway. Yeah, but no. I actually let him sit in the doorway, and I cast firewall in the doorway. So he was basically burning whilst I was hitting him. He was hitting back, obviously, but that was that was the first time I managed to actually kill the motherfucker.
Nice.
Was when I was with that little bit of what we now call emergent gameplay. So that's one cool memory and also when you hear him go with fresh meat.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Did the cinematic for the butcher play in the game, or was it just in the game and never played? Like when he throws something on a meat hook, like a torso.
I don't remember ever seeing a cinematic. To be honest,
there's a bunch of cinematics in the game that I found in the game files, and everybody knows about them. But I can't remember if they all played in game, because I know some of them were just plain not there.
I think I would have remembered that actually. I mean, I remember the intro cinematic, which is still a classic and cool stuff. But I don't remember cinematics.
Fun fact: The intro cinematic was made by a team of people that had no idea what the game was about.
Yeah, also another fun fact you find out from the postmortem is that the ending cinematic, they just made that shit up. The people who made the cinematics were a different studio. I don't know if it was part of Blizzard or they were like contracted, but they didn't have like a lot of communication. And the final thing, again, spoilers, in the final cinematic, after you defeat Diablo, you see that the hero takes Diablo's soulstone and shoves it in his forehead. That's not what they asked for. That's not what they told them to do. That's just something that the cinematic people made up.
And now it's canon.
And now it's canon, because back then you couldn't really, there was no time for them to do something different or time to communicate changes and shit like that. And it remained like that. They dovetailed quite wonderfully off of it with Diablo 2 then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, but at the time, they thought it really didn't make a lot of sense. And it probably didn't make a lot of sense up until Diablo 2 came around.
Yeah, we're talking about remakes at the beginning. If they're going to remake Diablo 1, they need to change the story because they changed it with Diablo 3 a lot. Like they've established in the Book of Cain, which is a physical book that I own, that the hero of Diablo 1, the warrior, the one that defeats Diablo, he is the oldest son of King Leoric, whereas his younger brother got possessed and became Diablo.
Okay. Sure, why not? Fuck it.
Yeah. It's actually one of the bits I actually liked about Diablo 3. They tried to enrich the story of Diablo 1 without ruining it.
Well, Diablo 1 didn't have that much of a story to begin with. I mean, it had some pieces in it. We had Tristram, we had the characters, we had some mentions of the Butcher and King Leoric and a couple of other things. The things that happened in the game were not super duper fleshed out, but there was a background of lore in it. You could find the books about the Sin War, about the Great Conflict, and they were also in the manual. And I ate those things up. They were just amazing. They spoke to you of a world bigger than this game, grander, of a war unending between light and darkness. It sounded amazing. And then later on, they got to do considerably more epic, a more epic journey and game. But again, I don't see that there wasn't, in as far as we see in the game, there wasn't that much story in Diablo 1. I mean, if they were to remake it, it wouldn't be a problem to retcon it, because most people's memory of the game
is fuzzy.
Probably starts with Diablo 3, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And as in most people who have played something, they've probably played Diablo 3, and then let's say 40%, as in not most of them, have also played Diablo 2. There's very few of us left who have played the original one, or who have been playing since the original one, and
we're like the
still
Horadrim. We're going extinct.
At a certain point, there won't be any of us left. But
it's just gonna be you or me next to a well talking to some kids about the good old days when we used to fight the devil.
And they're gonna say, "You have to use your hands." It's another game reference. It's another movie reference. Sorry. That's a baby's toy. But we can hope that with this reverse engineer the source code, it should make it easier for those passionate enough and those who have enough skill and time on their hands to either remake it. They could remake the assets if they have a lot of time on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could make something different. I think it might help a lot of people get started making prototypes for their RPGs, which that would be super awesome.
I think it would be a good idea. I mean, the way Diablo 1 was made, as you've said, was not really the way you make games today. The source code, the source files, they're C++ files, they're CPP files. They're not really used today to make games. There's no database linkage. There's just code. Like, it's so far removed from what you have today. It may as well be made in the Stone Age.
Technically, not necessarily Stone. Let's go with the Iron Age.
It was a step up from DOS.
It was because they hated this is again another story from the trenches. Making games run under DOS was a bitch, kids.
Yeah.
It was really, really annoying. IRQs and whatnot. Gateways. So and
making games run on Windows before DirectX. Oh god, that was horrible.
That was a whole other. What type of sound card do you have? This, that, the other thing, this other thing, this other thing. I'm like, fucking hell, dude.
Well, not even that, but without DirectX, before Microsoft made DirectX, games just could not find the hardware because Windows was in the way. That's why DirectX was made, because games would not run at all.
Fun times. Fun times. I wanna circle back a bit to the music.
Sure.
Because even now, listening to the town, the way it's, I mean, I got the music files at a certain point. I found them somewhere on the net, and there was just 4 music files. MP3s, obviously, back then. Because I don't know how someone dug through the source code.
It's easy to do, but the originals are in OGG format.
Yeah, that's why. And back then it was kind of hard, so they just found them and converted them and put them on. And I was just listen to those a couple of songs, and mostly for listening to the town, because that's the most.
Mm-hmm. That's iconic.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, whenever I think about Diablo in general, I tend to think about that guitar, that classical guitar, acoustic guitar, starting to do its thing. And back when I was trying to learn how to play the guitar, that was one of the things I was looking for tabs on how to play. And at least for me at that time, I've stopped trying to learn many years back. It was quite difficult, but the easiest part was to get the ding 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 done. That's the easiest part to do.
That bit to me is better at setting the stage for a game like this than an orchestra.
Yes, it does, because just like we've been saying, it was a very low-key, subdued, and intimate sort of experience. It's not the crazy heaven versus hell conflict that Diablo 3 is, because Diablo 3 does require that fucking insane orchestra due to the things going on. That there's like earth-shattering shit going on, but Diablo 1 is a much more individual and personal type of experience, and also claustrophobic.
Yeah,
and it required that different that different touch of music in order to work well.
So speaking of the music, did you ever try and, I don't know, do something like listen to all the audio files in the game? All the dialogue?
No, I don't think I didn't do that for Diablo. I did that for Warcraft 2.
Well, I did it for Diablo. I found on the I had the internet at the high school, so I found a program called MPQ Editor, which will let you open MPQ files. And turns out inside it's basically an archive with regular files. So I got that program. I used it on the Diablo 1 installation that I had. And I started nosing around the files, which are all named file 0001.xxx, file 0002.ogg, file 0003.wav. And I went through all of them, like all of them that I could read, because There is a directory listing list available now that actually shows you what the names of the files are, so you don't need to take them individually to find the things you want.
Yeah, but this was like what, 15 years ago. You had the time.
Yeah, well, I didn't have that. Instead of doing homework, I did this, and I regret nothing.
You had the time, exactly.
I regret nothing because what I found there just blew my mind. Like I had no idea at the time that Diablo 1 was meant to be so much bigger and that they had already done so much work in that regard. There was an entire extra NPC in the game files talking to me, telling me to go on quests, and then at the end screaming as if I had killed them. It was forgot his name right now. The priest Tremaine. He made you find the sword Shadowfang, which features in Diablo 2, and it's also in the lore. In the lore of Diablo 1, you hear about the Shadowfang being the sword that Hell made to counteract Azurath, which is a sword that Iswal wielded, and he tried to invade Hell to stop the forging of Shadowfang. And turns out Shadowfang was made, and it was supposed to be in Diablo 1. You were supposed to find it and destroy it because, well, it's evil. It corrupts everything it touches. And when you handed it to the priest to destroy it, it kills him. Then it's all there in the text file, in the audio files.
And that's something we as people right now who have been interested in covering and interested in game development in general, something that we are very aware of is that whenever we get to actually play a game, a finished game, especially if it's anywhere near decent, it's more or less a minor miracle that it actually exists when you compare it to the amount of content that is cut due to time, money, problems, or when you consider the initial idea that it started from and what it is that you actually play, because that Diablo 1 is a valid example of that as well. Yeah. Because it started being initially it was supposed to be a modern version of Rogue. That's how he describes it. It had permadeath. It was turn-based. It had a bunch of. It basically had an action point system.
It had an island on a sunless sea. I think, I'm not exactly sure if I remember this correctly, but a part of the Pandemonium Fortress was supposed to be in Diablo 1.
I think I heard something about that as well, but I think it's a reference or something in some
it's
of the
in the dialogue files for Farnham, the drunk. In the original version, he didn't just go, PTSD from meeting the butcher. He actually went down to hell and sort of came back, and he's not right in the head for good reasons. He saw hell.
That would make you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot. I mean, I think it's also a great thing that the game was so good that they actually got time and the money afterwards to actually expand the world and do all of this crazy cool shit later on.
They still didn't get as much time as they would have wanted to because Diablo 2 was made in a crunch that killed people almost.
Yeah, that's something that the entire subject of crunch is something that I hope is becoming less and less a thing in game development, but I'm not sure if that's actually gonna happen anytime soon per se. I'm a person who really doesn't like working overtime. And the concept of crunch is abhorrent to me.
Yeah, especially when it's there's not really much you can do against it because game developers don't have what you would call a union to negotiate on behalf of all of them for better working conditions.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably a separate episode.
Yeah.
separate reasons. We still hopefully have several other tens of episodes where we can just focus on the games, not necessarily on the not so cool part, the obviously less glamorous parts of game development.
Well, since it's already been an hour, let's try and wind this down a bit. So, what was your impression of Diablo when you first met him in the game, when you first fought him? What did it make you feel?
I was quite a... I remember being it... I mean, it was difficult. It was difficult. It was challenging, managing to get to Diablo. It was really, really problematic because those succubi were really fast.
Oh, yeah. And if you had something like Griswold's Edge, you would keep knocking them back and running after them, and they would hit you. But if you didn't have Griswold's Edge and you were a fighter, then all the Hell Knights would swarm you and you'd be dead. But with Griswold's Edge, you could basically punch them away bit by bit, so they would come back only one by one.
Yeah,
actually have a chance.
Knockback is a great. Was a great effect in Diablo 1. It was kind of useful in 2 as well, but not necessarily.
Unless you played as a paladin with zeal, and then knockback was horrible.
Yeah,
you punched them once, they went away, and then you kept hitting the air.
But yeah, when I first got to Diablo, it was it really felt like like I had actually accomplished something, because it had been difficult and challenging to actually get there. The game doesn't make anything easy at any point in time, regardless of your... I mean, sure, you can min-max, but even if you min-max a warrior or anything else for that matter, the game is never easy. So yeah, it was a feeling of actually accomplishing something once I only got to him, let alone actually defeat him.
Did he drop anything good?
Oh, I can't remember that. I really cannot remember that. Sorry.
Traditionally, he doesn't ever. His loot is horrible. Getting to him was like a real challenge because of all the Hell Knights, all the succubi. It was difficult. But when I actually got to meet him, when he started casting Apocalypse and the fire started shooting from the ground, and he just took out half my health with like 2 hits, I started panicking. But then I got close to him and started engaging in melee combat with the warrior, which was the character that I had at first. And he dealt basically no damage to me. Because by that time I had died a lot of times during the previous attempts to finish the game. So I restarted the game with the character and then leveled up and more and more. And apart from not being resistant to Apocalypse, I had a character that was really, really, really beefy. And while he was hitting me, I was rearranging my potions in my inventory, expecting epic loot so I would have room for the loot. Because I had heard that once he dies, you have a very, very limited time to actually gather the loot before the cinematic starts and you have to go back down. So killing him was kind of a disappointment because he didn't do much on normal difficulty. Like the Apocalypse, yeah, a lot of damage, but once he stopped casting it, he was my bitch. Which is in contrast to Diablo 2. In Diablo 2, he murderized me so many times that I was getting anxiety attacks trying to fight him. Especially because I was using a necromancer back then, and you could not buy mana potions back then.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, we're gonna keep Diablo 2 stories for the Diablo 2 episode.
Yeah, but by comparison, I think it's because Diablo 1 didn't have a tail. The tail made him more imposing.
Could be.
I actually had a very, very spirited discussion with a friend of mine about whether Diablo had a tail or not. And I knew him to not have a tail because I had only played Diablo 1 at that point. Didn't play the full version of Diablo 2 by myself. I only played the bit where I tried to kill Baal while he was standing still. So I kept telling him he doesn't have a tail. He doesn't have a tail. And we started making drawings of Diablo with and without a tail, realizing they were completely different characters.
Okay. Yeah, they look kind of similar, but kind of different. Also, that's the whole idea of at the end of Diablo 1, when the hero, the character, takes the soul stone and shoves it in his forehead. It's basically a different version of Diablo. So you could argue that that's why they look slightly different, let's say, because they corrupted different people. And maybe at a certain point it corrupted one of those sand things in Diablo 2. I don't know. That's where he gets the tail.
Possibly, or maybe the host was stronger and therefore able to contain a version that was a version of the avatar more similar to what he actually looked like in hell before his body was destroyed.
We'll never know. It makes for fun speculation and maybe some fan fiction, but yeah.
Diablo 1 story sort of allowed for a lot of speculation because Metzen, when he wrote it, he was really vague at a lot of things. Like Osmodan and Belial defeated the primevals by leading the Horned Death against them. Never mention what it is. Never. The Horned Death. Nobody knows. It's something.
Sometimes that's a technique I kind of use as well. I just mention something.
Yeah, sort of like Lucas did with the Clone Wars, and then
I just mentioned
30
something.
years later.
Yeah, I mentioned something and I just let it there. It's fine. If I, as I call them, anchors. If I ever write a sequel, then I can always anchor myself to that thing, that mention of something that happened in the past, item that did something. So sometimes that's a good way of doing things, because it gives you some setup for what you're doing, and without having to go too much into detail.
Yeah,
because then if you go too much into detail from the beginning, then you
you get bogged down and people get bored. They don't get attached to things as well when you give them all the details. And it does leave things open for people to write fan fiction, which is what I actually did. Blizzard had a contest a couple of years ago, I think 10 years ago, with the fan fiction writing contest. It wasn't open to Romania, but I still entered it with a fan fiction about the carcass being thrown on the hook by the butcher.
Okay.
I wrote a story about that guy. Never heard back from Blizzard, but I did publish that in a contest at Eurogamer Romania, which existed for about a year had, and I got a bunch of games for it. Like, they sent me a box of games. I have
nice.
a
Actual
superb a superb box version of X-Blades, which, not a great game, but the box itself, like the amount of work that went into making the box, with the map, with the poster, with the strategy guide in several languages, including Romanian, that's amazing.
Yeah, box games, something that we never really got the chance to actually have and enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, Diablo 2's box even had, I think it was in the collector's edition, had the D&D module with Diablo 2.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a thing. I'm pretty sure that existed. I mean, if it wasn't straight from Blizzard, there were countless fan-made modules.
That was like in the box. I think it was in the collector's edition.
I think it was a special type of thing. But that was more of a. Although, to be honest, whenever we would get together to play D&D, I would make it clear that this isn't Diablo. In as much as it's. I mean, there's gonna be some fighting and rolling dice, but that's not why we're here, assholes. But that's a different thing.
But still, at some point, you do need to pawn some of this stuff.
You do, but I'm just I'm a different type of DM, so I do not give my players a lot of items, especially not a lot of magic items. So I'm very stingy. I make things challenging.
So, to close things out, what's your favorite memory of Diablo 1?
It has to be the music and the line that you started the show with.
Stay a while and listen.
Yeah, maybe with less Sean Connery. Stay
a while and listen.
That's slightly better, but you need to work on the listen because it's too much of a young person. You need to actually, you should have done that whilst you had the coughing. Next time you have a sore throat, do it.
I'll try. My favorite memory would be just walking around Tristram and just thinking about what I could be doing here. I always wanted to go into the houses. I would just sit there in front of the houses, waiting for Pippin to, move out of the way or something so I could go in and see what's inside.
You remember there's one quest where you have to find the sign for the inn or something?
Yeah, the sign for the inn.
The fuck is it doing on level 7 of the catacombs? Oh, well, some crazy imp stole it. I'm like, what the fuck were they doing on this? Anyway, sure. I'll get your fuck.
You keep hearing that there were incursions by demons into the town, but you never see that.
Exactly. Sure, fine, asshole. I'll go get your fucking sign. Can't you just make a new one?
Well, it's late at night. I mean, he doesn't want to.
It's always late at night in Tristram. That's not a valid answer.
Well, I guess this would be it for our incursion into Diablo 1. We'll probably make a show about Diablo 2 as well when they announce the remake at this year's BlizzCon. Hopefully.
We will definitely be talking about Diablo 2 at a certain point, but not this isn't not next week, people.
No. We'll have something different for next week unless we have coughing again or something like that.
Let's just not. Let's have another episode. I'm not too keen. I'm not a big fan of being ill.
Me neither. Yeah. Well, I guess this would be it. Do you have anything on your channel this week?
Well, this week, I should have something on my channel this week because I got sick after I came back from my holiday. So it's been rather empty there for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I wanna next week at a certain point. I'm not exactly sure when I will be releasing my video on surviving Fallout 4 survival mode. That's my working title for it. It's basically gonna be a bunch of tips for the first 20 levels worth of experience in the game. A bunch of things that I learned the hard way and that I would have liked to know before starting playing Fallout 4 in survival mode, which, by the way, is the bomb.
Have you set a start date for your Fallout 2 playthrough with the melee build?
No, not as of yet. I might actually start it this week. I'm not exactly sure yet. I'm gonna have to see what else happens and whatnot. But that's still gonna be a thing. Yeah.
Well, and
but it's not. Probably. I'm not gonna stream it on YouTube because that just fucks up my channel even more. Yeah. D-Live for the win. If prices were a bit better for Steam and SPD. Ah well, I ain't getting shit from YouTube, so doesn't matter for me.
Like when I came home from going to the military parade, there was a review of the latest Jurassic Park movie from regular media, and by the time I clicked on it, it got removed for being spam, which is weird.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe YouTube flagged one of the videos wrong, or maybe somebody got fed up. They tend to do videos sometimes where they just sit in the chair and not talk for half an hour, just in protest because the movie was awful.
Might be. I don't know. That's we can bitch about YouTube at a certain point. I think it's kind of our duty. I think it's kind of our duty at a certain point to bitch about YouTube, but not now. Fuck it. Yeah. We had great fun reminiscing about Diablo 1. Hopefully people had fun listening to us.
And if not, we'll await your comments in the comments. Please be merciful. Goodbye.
See you next time.